third in the Ugats. We're here with my family, my two youngest, Orion, Lucia, and my wife Stephanie. This is the buck that my wife Stephanie harvested. So what we're going to do today is process this deer and essentially get all the meat off of it and the other parts that we might use. As you can see, we have the hide. So we're going to first skin it by cutting up in the legs here, and we'll just essentially kind of peel it down and cut it down, and then start to remove the meat. So the importance of this deer is something that our people have been doing for generations, since the beginning of time. It's a very major protein diet. It's very healthy. It's one of the most healthiest meats you can eat. And just the overall qualities of the animal in this deer. So there's a number of other components that people could use of the animal, but we're going to be using of course, the meat and the skin. So hopefully you guys can learn and go harvest a deer on the reservation. And this is something that we self-taught. So we learned this by just doing this. It's pretty simple for the most part. You kind of stick to the bone. There's the back straps. There's the rump roast. There's all kinds of real yummy parts that you can take off of it. So we try to get every single piece, so you can have the steaks and the roast, but also get all the different little pieces of meat that you can use to do stew meat, grind up for burger. I'd recommend using pork, not beef, with those burgers. And what we did here lastly is we hung it up. I know some people may not like to look at, this, but it's natural, of course. You dress the deer in the woods, which Stephanie did. And we hung it up here so it can have a little time to drain some blood, and that helps with the gamey taste. So when you're eating it, it doesn't have that, gamey venison deer taste. So that's why we hung it. And did I miss anything? So again, we're learning. That's the whole point of this process is you learn by doing. So we're going to continue to keep doing this, and if we can teach others, great. We're still kind of teaching ourselves in the process. So hope you guys can learn something, and again, go out and get your own deer and cut it up. And some people may not like to do it, but I think it's kind of fun. Maybe that's weird, but no. So we're gonna start cutting it up. See the hairs there. I know when you're ready. Start pulling. Lydia, you want her? I'll show you something. You come over here. You notice how when the deer's hanging, the weight of it kind of helps pull the skin. So you start to cut, you see all that fat connection there. You essentially just separate it, and using your strength to pull and the weight of the deer hanging, it helps kind of pull it off itself. So just a little side note. Careful, because there's knives on the table, okay? Another side note: when you're doing this, it does go faster when you're working in a pair. I wouldn't recommend more than 2 people, but just kind of collaborate and communicate, so you don't cut each other and do sudden jerk and pull movements. Just kind of stay in sync and kind of stay on the same level as you peel down. Don't try to get ahead of them too much, and just kind of wait for them if they're taking a little longer. So just keep that in mind, and of course your own hands, your own safety. Just be careful when you're cutting, and be mindful of the blade. You want to cut it like that?
Yeah. It's like too high for me.
That's crazy. Oh, you just pull out the Achilles like that. What you call it?
Around the leg, and what we're doing right now is we're pulling down the hide because we work to tan the hides. We don't want any knife marks in this because that'll show on the hide. So once we cut around here, it's almost like this meat comes in like its own wrapping paper almost. And when you start to pull it down, it's pretty easy. You just kind of cut a little bit, but I'll show you, kind of demonstrate how simple that is. I just said it was simple and here I'm struggling. So right here I'm kind of getting some of the meat. I'm going to cut just a little piece off. But you can kind of see how it's almost like self-preserved, how the meat kind of preserves itself. This tail part's a little tricky. Nice. Lots of fat on this guy. Oh. And then we've got to cut the part of the vertebrae where the tail is. It's the only part that... So I'm not cutting the actual hide, I'm just cutting the...
You can just pour it down.
So...
What we should just cut on these ones. Just, once these are separated in the inside here, this just all come down. You know what I'm saying? Like inside. So
that's the only part I really kind of had to cut was that vertebrae for the tail. You all set?
yeah. Now this is either gonna gross you out or make you hungry. One of the two.
So we work with bear fat. When a bear shot, like when my son shot his bear, we saved the fat and we melted it down. I'm going to kind of research deer tallow because I know that people use it. I'm not sure exactly what for. I'm assuming some of it may be similar to bear grease, but maybe not as many qualities. But that's another thing that we can keep without having that go to waste.
Nice little chunk of fat there. Some people use it.
Okay.
Do it here, we got the skin off. A little harder than it usually is, but we got it off. And so a couple of things just to kind of take note again is usage of the deer parts. We mentioned meat and the hide. So if you want to tan the hide, there's a whole process and time of the year even to do stuff like that. So Stephanie can share about the tan hiding if she wants, but you also use other components of the deer like the sinew. So there's all these different little chunks of peritoneum, as I call it, that kind of preserve and help keep these muscles and different parts kind of protected and like covered and together. Those parts can be used for a lot of different things, like lacrosse sticks, fishing components. I'm forgetting all the different, there's all kinds of uses that, you know, Minas have been using for years. Fill me in if you remember some, but
The tail,
Tail.
the hair on the buck's tail is really good for lures and things like that.
yeah, so, you know, these forearms and lower legs can be used for knives and different weapons and even farming tools. So all kinds of things you can use the body parts for.
The hip bones are good for combs. Ernie made a knife with one of his deer antlers.
I think it's very important to take note of when you're preparing to start this. I should have mentioned this earlier, but you know, what tools are you gonna use? You know, I got a series of four or five knives that I use and keep sharp. This is my favorite knife for this knife. Well, one of my favorites, I should say. I use this to skin a buffalo. I had a buffalo hunt in South Dakota, razor sharp, and it fits perfectly in the hand, and you can get it around without taking up too much space. It just kind of cuts real nice. I have a saw. You know, as you can see, at some point you gotta saw these off to help get the hide off, and just, you know, if you want to keep these parts, so you kind of saw. We'll probably saw the head off here momentarily. So I got my machete someplace. I don't know why we have a butter knife here. I'm in a casino, but yeah, this got a series. This here actually would have been nice too to use. Get the gut hook on these this buck knife. This would be helpful to strip down skin and do things like that. You probably won't need it, but lastly is keeping your knife sharp. So I sharpened all these knives before I started, but the thing about it is these animals they're tough, especially this fat. So they tend to you know, cause your blades to go down. So you gotta keep I don't have it on me, but it's a sharpening tool. So sometimes you might have to stop in between or during the time and sharpen it. Or if you get another deer, you might have to sharpen it before the next deer. So just keep that in mind. Have nice sharp tools available. The sharper the better they'll be for cutting the knife, the meat off and the skin. So we're gonna get going here and start cutting off the yummy part. So you look at it, you can kind of see the different pieces of meat. What they do is they're like, if you look at it, it's not just one big chunk of meat all connected. They're like separate parts. There's different muscles and pieces of the meat that go different directions. It's like, if you look right here, you see this is a separate section. You kind of cut into it. You don't want to cut the meat, obviously, but you kind of start to see how they separate. And what you want to do is get in between them, and you can even use your finger and kind of get in there. You can start to kind of see how it's all different parts. They're like segments. So just like the bone, if you find the bone, you cut with the bone, kind of like, you know, like a fish. So you find those parts, you kind of get your knife in there and just try to cut against the bone. That's partially why also it starts to dull. But you cut up against the bone and just kind of get that meat off of it and separate it from it. So just one thing to kind of know, you just kind of look at it, you eye it up, and you see, turn this a little bit, you kind of see how they separate. So you see that there, the meat's kind of coming off on its own, that we don't cut it, see? Give it a little bit of help there. The meat just kind of starts to come off. Okay, this part here is actually, this here's the rump roast back here. Really tender, yummy part of the animal. Good for, obviously good for roasts. So again, side note, when you're cleaning the deer, you notice you're kind of cutting it open, you're taking all these entrails, removing them. You have in this case, a buck, you have the male genitalia, you gotta, you know, cut that out. But you don't want to get any urine or any of the intestinal feces onto the meat. You start spilling out into here, and it kind of gets in there and increases the chance of getting bacteria, which leads to, you know, meat going bad and just flavor, you know. So watch out for the urine if you're cutting up a buck. Same thing with a female deer. There's urine sacs in there, and of course the feces inside. So not very pleasant things to discuss and think about, but it's very important that you keep in mind of that. And yeah, so. What we're doing here is we're just taking off the front quarters of the deer. It definitely makes it a lot easier when you want to take the meat off. So there's different ways of doing it. You know, kind of cut into the back of the leg here and just kind of, you know, essentially just get it off there, and you still got a bunch of good meat there. So you can get these off separately and then kind of start working your way up. And then when you get to here, you can do the same thing and essentially either just cut off all the meat, or you can just completely quarter the whole entire deer and do these separately. Like some people like to keep the ribs and do the tomahawk chops and things like that, which is like a rib with a chunk of meat on it. There's a lot of different ways you can do it if you know how to cut the meat. So again, YouTube some stuff, Google it, look out for different ways of cutting the meat, but we're just kind of getting this thing chopped up. And
I did a hack job on it. It's swinging, and I was trying to do it by myself, but I'm gonna go back and fine tune and grab the meat. I'm just trying to get this off fast. And it's this side right here is where I shot. The arrow went in, so as you can see, it's not as pretty. But we're working with it the best that we can and salvaging the meat the best we can.
It's a nice little slab of meat. Throw that in the fryer with some eggs. Boom. You can do that right now.
I'm just starting.
There, that's the shot came in, so it's all messy, but gonna keep that full arm or the shoulder intact. Cut it into the inside of the shoulder, keep all that meat on there. We'll cut that up after.
Okay, so try this.
Nice big chunk of
Grab
stew
that.
meat. Look at that.
I'm gonna pull.
That don't make you hungry. I don't know what does.
Put it.
One thing I'll say about this process is when you take it into a processor, professional processor, you know, they do a pretty good job. They're good at it. They know what they're doing, you know, but sometimes they, you know, they're going so fast. They have literally a pile of deer they have to get through at a certain time to make sure people get their meat back so it's fresh and they can package it, get it in the freezer. So, but when you're doing it, you know, on our own, you know, be real meticulous. You want to see every piece of this meat. There's a lot of good meat on here. So I like to try to kind of use my finger and feel it out, separate it. When I start cutting, I want to make sure I'm not cutting some, you know, some good meat off. So I take my time and just be real meticulous with it. So it's not about how fast you can do it. It's about how efficient and how you know, how much meat you can get off it. So no one's trying to win any races here. You can feel the backbone, the ridge of the backbone right here. Kind of just cut into that.
Do you want me to put it on the side or?
No, you're not.
And you can help on that side too when Dad starts cutting.
So just some real minor cutting. You see, I already got my hand through there. See that? So you just kind of cut this vertebra here. And you kind of work your way up.
Lucia wants to do that part.
What part?
That part. Like cutting it off the bone.
Oh, see it? Want to cut it?
Yep.
Come here. Be real careful now. So one thing, right, we have to mention this. As you can see, we have some children helping us. It's really important to us as a family that they learn, you know, at a very young age, mainly to learn safety, to respect that it is a potentially harmful utensil if not used carefully. And so to also just really get comfortable with it and get knowledgeable on how to properly use it so they're not cutting themselves or each other or whatever. Or, you know, of course, lastly, not the most important, but that they're not cutting off and cutting into the meat improperly. So safety and respectful handling is the most important thing. So we're gonna let my daughter Lucia do this. Make sure you come over here, Lucia. So she actually has her own, she's used her own knife before. Here you go.
Do you want to take your jacket off or are you okay?
Take your jacket, you're gonna get warm, take it off. I want you to get it off, buddy. So this is not her first deer she's processed, so technically she's done more processing on other deer before. And bear. So remember, right here, I'm gonna cut, feel it, take your piece of your hand. Feel that bone? This is the backbone ridge. I'm gonna cut up against this, okay? So I feel that, how it pushes up against it. You wanna cut against it like that as you cut the meat up, okay? You wanna do that? And don't put your fingers in front of it. Here you go. Keep pushing, pushing. Here you go. All the way up.
They can help too.
Hold on. Okay, I'll put it here. So you can look in here. Okay, here. I'll take this and use this hand.
Can I do this side while she's doing that side?
Sure. Oh, no, not where you do that. See, cut, see here? Cut them, see them butts in the bottom there? Cut that right there, okay? Again, against the bone, just like that. Like this. Okay? Up here, up here, up here. Okay. Okay, here, hold it. Just a little bit. Just a little chunk there, but that's all right. So this here, back strap. Give it a little, you know, nice little smack of love. So just a couple kind of last notes. You know, again, we're all learning. You know, we're still learning, but again, like I said, you learn best by doing. Even if it's, you know, failing and doing it wrong, you learn by, you know, just doing it. So even with this one, as anyone watching this video, you have any insight or anything you want to share, please do. This is for all of us, not just you guys. We're also learners, so you know, we can always use some more information. But so it's just important, you know, you want to take care of the meat. It's important to keep it fresh. You know, it's pretty cool in this garage, so it's good overnight. It was harvested last night, but you don't want to keep this hanging too long, if you start cutting it, you kind of want to get it done. You want to have proper storage. You want to have freezer paper with some tape to wrap it up in and get it in the freezer. Have all that stuff ready. Obviously you got the hang hook, things like that. We did mention that when you hang it, you cut into these back heel or areas of the leg here, so where it's soft. Cut through it, you hang it up. Yeah, it's just very important that you be mindful of those things, and proper utensils with your knives, having all that ready, and just getting this deer cut up, and of course you want to properly dispose of it. There's different ways that you can do that, hope to get all this meat off, and again, get it into the freezer, and get it ready for eating, for sharing, whatever you want to do. So again, please share.